Amidst tightening environmental regulations on rental stock from the UK government, North East landlords are facing a £1.2 billion bill to upgrade leaky homes by 2028 to meet new government legislation. This is according to new data, which has been powered by data science company Outra. Cities in the North East have some of the highest proportion of rental stock under EPC-C in the UK, with almost 1 in 2 rented homes across 7 cities and towns in the region coming under EPC-C. Santa Agolli is the Business Development Director at Outra. They've organised this research and this data, which is going to be, well, it's not great news for landlords. Santa joins me over the phone this morning. Hi there, Santa.
Hi Sam, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for coming on and joining us on this. Can you just explain for people who maybe haven't understood a single word I've just said what this means for landlords across the North East?
Yeah, so in 2028, the government is requiring that all tenanted properties have an EPC rating of C or above. So what that means is landlords need to be ensuring that they're making changes such as windows, roofs, boilers, etc. in order to get to that rating. What we've learned here is actually this is going to cost an average of $10,000 per home. So it's quite a costly thing for landlords to be doing. And this is really affecting the mum and pop landlord more than anything. Institutional landlords, sure, they might have the capital to do this, but your average landlord might not have that cash. So what we're seeing is people thinking about now listing their homes for sale. And what does this now mean for the tenant? Well, we're already seeing a huge increase in rent. And now there may also be a decrease in properties available. And if we're looking at a student town like Durham, what does that mean for students who rely on these properties to study in? To do their 3 years of university at. And if we're looking at Durham, 2/3 of the properties in Durham fall below an EPC rating of C.
It's really worrying, actually, this data. Just looking at Durham, 12,718 homes within Durham fall under EPCC, which is 61%. That is really, really worrying for people who in the next 10 years are going to be looking for rental properties in Durham City, which of course sort of changes every single year, the tenants who are trying to find those properties. We saw scenes over the past couple of years of students waiting out overnight on the street to find properties. What are some of the kind of tasks that landlords are going to have to do to bring these properties up to scratch and above EPCC?
So they'll need to be replacing things like the windows, the boilers, the roofs, lighting, fireplaces, all of those things, insulation. So not only is it that task, but then it's the task of the time it takes to do that. And at the moment, we're seeing an increase in raw material costs. We're seeing an increase in labour costs. So while that cost might be £10,000 now, we don't know what that's going to be in the next few years. And also, there's a penalty attached to it as well. So the penalty for not having a valid EPC will be raised from £5,000 to £30,000 by 2025.
And what's the data saying about what landlords are planning on doing? What is the current projection of a landlord sort of saying, well, you know, stuff this, we're off? Or the majority of landlords kind of saying, okay, well, we're going to have to work hard, but we're going to have to up rent? What's the kind of projection looking like for how landlords are reacting to this?
Well, actually, yes, they're saying that they will be leaving. So this so-called war on landlords is very much negative. And if we're having a look at the demographic of a lot of these landlords, they tend to be older. So for them, it's a lot easier to just put your house up for sale. And we're seeing that at Upstix. So our model is to buy your home for cash. And a lot of the people inquiring tend to be an older demographic that just want to get out. Now, at Upstix, we buy with a tenant in place, so you don't have to get rid of your tenant. But if you are just listing your property the normal way with an agent, what's that tenant now going to be doing?
So that's the knock-on effect, essentially, is that you end up with houses available for purchase on buy-to-let mortgages, but nobody really around to actually buy the property.
Absolutely. And, you know, sure, there'll be properties available to buy, but who's really buying now? You've got an increase in mortgage rates. You've got a lot of tax coming your way. There's a lot of tax reforms. So being a landlord is tougher than ever.
What would you say about somebody listening to this who essentially says, this sounds like a real sympathy pull for landlords here, and it's hard to get sympathy for landlords in a cost of living crisis. Personally, I think people have an idea of landlords sitting on this infinite well of cash, but that's not always the truth, is it? In fact, actually, the cost of living crisis, the property market pinches landlords as well as renters. And if renters are struggling, that's sort of a reflection of landlords struggling as well. These rates aren't just going up to get more profit for landlords, are they? The cost on being a landlord, the responsibilities of being a landlord are pretty tough at the minute.
Absolutely. And we're not thinking about these landlords that have multiple properties. This can also be your landlord that has one property, who has this property as another source of income. We're not looking at, let's say, greedy corporations here. It is a tough time for landlords, but I do understand that tenants do need better EPC regulated housing as well. But the costs assigned to this are really going to alienate a lot of these landlords. As I mentioned earlier, like in student towns like Durham, landlords are very much needed. You cannot be having all these landlords selling up in a student town. It's going to have a massive knock-on effect in the local economy.
So what's the solution as far as Upstix is concerned then? What, in your view, is the solution to this problem for landlords?
They have several options. So the first would be to just pay for the upgrades, and depending on how financially well off they are, that may be achieved. Otherwise, at Upstix, we can offer a service where we buy your house for cash with your tenant in place. Alternatively, landlords can resell as well. I mean, there isn't one solution fits all. This is just one thing that landlords are facing. There's new legislations coming out. Like, we don't know what is next. The only thing that we can do is try to support landlords as much as possible and navigate through these legislations that are continuously coming out and making sure that they don't have to face any fines. But ultimately, we need to raise awareness. Many landlords don't know about these EPC regulations, so you don't want them to have like a nasty surprise when it comes to it.
Absolutely. So, Santa, can you please tell us where, there's going to be lots of landlords listening to this, like you have just pointed out. This might come as a shock to some of them. Tenants as well. Where can people go for more information?
So you can find a lot of information about this on government sites, just to understand what the legislations mean for landlords. You can call us at Upstix, and our website's upstix.com, and we have a dedicated team here that can help you navigate through that. But ultimately, I think it's just doing a lot of your extra reading just to make sure that you are aware of all the legislations that are coming up.
Yeah, be aware that it's coming. Santa Agolli, thank you so much for joining us this morning on the programme.
Thank you so much.
Durham On Air.